Welcome to Disconnecting from the Matrix, where the release is from within. I'm your host, Alice Kim, and thank you for joining me for this very first episode. Today, we'll cover some basic background information about the show, what it's about, what it's not about, as well as a little bit about me and why I've created the show. We'll also discuss who this podcast is for and why you might want to consider listening. All right, let's get started. So what is this show about? Well, this is a big subject, so I'm going to try to make it brief. I'll only mention some key points. And by the way, what I want to say here is a bit different from what's written about the show on the website. Instead of repeating what I wrote, I'm going to take off where it ended and add to it. So if you'd like to read what's there, which is more like a primer, please visit the website at disconnectmatrix.com. That's disconnectmatrix.com. About this show, if there's one word to sum it up, it's freedom. Most of us think we're free, but are we really? I'll be challenging that. Because what we've come to believe as freedom is, for the most part, total BS. Bullshit. An illusion at best, and a straight-out lie at worst. But really, what's the difference between an illusion and a lie? Nothing. They're both untrue, and therefore unreal. Even seemingly simple and obvious decisions like what you choose to eat, the people you choose to have relationships with, the things you choose to say, the people you vote for in public offices, you think you're exercising your right, your freedom. And get this, your thoughts and beliefs, especially your thoughts and beliefs. You think, if anything, you're free to think your own thoughts and have your beliefs. But that's usually not the case. I want to expose those falsehoods that trick you into thinking you're free, but in reality, they imprison you. I want to talk about these things so that we can get free. For real. The first step to freedom is awareness, and that happens when you wake up and start to be conscious of the fact that you were unconscious, that you were asleep. You were dreaming. This show is about waking up from that dream, the forgetfulness of your truth, and remembering it all again by releasing, dismantling, letting go of this dream, this false reality that I'm calling the matrix, that's getting in the way of self-realization, self-actualization, which is the freedom that comes from knowing what you are. This word release, I chose that very carefully as part of my tagline. The release is from within. Now, most people think that they have to struggle, battle, or otherwise resist falsehood, resist injustice, darkness, disease, whatever that appears to be getting in the way of their freedom, of truth, love, peace, and joy. They look at it like it's an enemy to go to war against and to conquer. The war on cancer, the war on drugs, the war on hunger, the war on terrorism, the war on violence. Seriously, does any of this make sense? This paradox, this upside down, backwards shit, look what it's done for us, except to make the other side stronger, more threatening, more insane, more fearful, and more real. What you resist persists. Carl Jung said that. What you resist not only persists, but it grows, and you get more of it. I don't have to explain any more than this, because you all know from your own life experience what I'm talking about. So the resistance, the fight, it's really all very futile. Yet history keeps repeating itself to often disastrous consequences because it has not caught on to this very obvious truth. And the reason why it keeps on repeating itself in seemingly grander, more sinister and insane ways is because these things, these illusions, they want to be released. They want to be forgiven by us. So they keep coming back, more desperate each time to grab our attention until we finally get it. Get what? Get the fact that it's all a dream, not real, and to stop giving it any more energy, solidity, and reality to it. We're battling an illusion. We're like Don Quixote, tilting at windmills, at imaginary enemies. The enemies that we falsely create for ourselves based on our erroneous thoughts and beliefs about who we are, what we are, and what this world is about. So all that it takes, though, to dispel a bad dream is not to insist that it's real, but to let it go. And when you do that, it goes, it's gone. It dissolves back into the nothingness that it came from, never to return again in your reality. So that's what I mean by the release is from within. As within, so without. Out of mind, out of sight. If there is an absence of hate within you, you won't see a world full of hate. If you don't have thoughts and beliefs of suffering, there will be no suffering in your life. If you are full of peace, then no matter what the outside world appears to prove to the contrary, you will always remain in peace. It all starts and ends from within you. So this release, it truly is from within. It's all in your mind. You are the creator. Whatever you put out, that's what you're getting. The outer world is simply an effect, and you are the cause, the source. The outer world, it's like a mirror reflection of your interior picture, or the feedback you get from an echo, just bouncing back to you, your frequency. So if you don't like what you're getting, look instead on how to uncreate it from within. And if you want more of what you have, then simply create more of it from within, knowing that you can always create something else if you ever change your mind. So this show is about first getting real, taking a hard, honest look at yourself and your world, and then eventually making choices that will help you arrive at being real. And at that point, we can start putting the real back into your reality. And as simple as this all sounds, it's not easy. It's not easy because this matrix, this thing that I call the matrix, this collective consciousness of illusions, delusions, and lies, this thick blanket of forgetfulness, it's everywhere and very convincing and so seductive. And although it takes an awakening mind, this spark, to start to see through this, that's not enough to set you free. It's just the beginning. And like anything of value, it requires as much practice as it takes to get from knowing about something to actually knowing a thing, which is the same as being it. It's like the difference between knowing about a play and watching the performance in the audience and actually being the performance. And by being the performance, it's not just about you as the performer, but as you being the sole creator of the entire production from concept, script, casting, stage set, lighting, directing, editing, all of it, including as the audience. It's all your creation, without exception. So that's a lot. And that's why most people, even having had glimpses of this initial spark of awareness, they aren't ready to go further. And that is completely understandable because the choice to wake up requires total responsibility, unwavering courage, brutal self-honesty, and the willingness to give up entire belief systems that you've held near and dear to you and provided you with the reality that you have known up to this point. To give it all up if it no longer serves you, the emerging master. In other words, you have to be willing to let everything untrue in your life to fall apart, fall away, or otherwise rearrange itself in order for all that is true and loving and supporting of you to take its place. And that means there will be changes, and lots of them. And we all know that most people say they want change, but they don't really want it because they're scared to death of it. Another way to see this is to think of the transition to freedom as if you're a spacecraft breaking through the forces of the Earth's atmosphere in order to transcend it, this matrix of limitations, and into the big, open, endless expanse of space, which represents the world of no limits. There will be turbulence before you break free. There will be changes. There will be things that fall away. And if you really want it, your desire, your passion for your awakening will be the rocket fuel that helps you propel up and up through every bump, tremor, and shake until you reach the stillness that is the core of you and that which is also the you of the universe. So, yes, to freedom, to sovereignty, to self-authority, to mastery. The mastery of not the world, but your world. Because that's all there is. And with it comes joy, certainty, presence, grace, and ultimately what I want, and what I think you also want, which is permanent peace. A few more things. Consciousness. I'll be talking a lot about that. Consciousness, it's your awareness, your mind, your frequency, your invisible self, your true self, your free self, your higher self, your middle self, your lower self, whatever you want to call it. It's all of it. That's you. And you, as consciousness, is creating your reality. So if you don't like what you're experiencing and want to change that, you've got to change your consciousness, your vibration. If you don't like the songs you're getting in the radio station of your reality and want to change that, then you've got to change your frequency. But it's up to you to choose to dial it up or dial it down. And things will change according to that choice. Whatever the you, the master, declares is law. So you are consciousness. And this whole time, you thought you were your body. And that's where the problem lies. you're focused on the wrong thing. Again, as within, so without. This show will talk repeatedly about this concept in order to get you to start shifting your reference point from the outer world to the inner world as the source of your reality, the source of both your suffering and your joy, either of which is yours to choose, as always. And speaking of inner world, there's an artificial gatekeeper, a caretaker, a superintendent, if you will, of this inner world that you'll get to meet over and over again. It's called ego. You'll find that it's more than what most people think it is, and the very thing that's keeping you from being truly happy, truly free. This ego mind is going to be an important theme in the coming episodes, and you may be surprised to find that it's also just another part of the matrix that's yours for the releasing at any time. Because like everything else in the matrix, it's not real. So think of the show as mind training, consciousness training. You go to the gym to condition your body, and that's all good. But I'm saying you are not a body. You are consciousness. Consciousness experiencing itself as a body. Your body, like all form in this 3D world, is a projection of your mind. And if you want to wake up, it will do you well to make training your mind take precedence over training the body. You see, most people's minds, they're not conditioned properly. They're not trained properly. They're not focused because they don't have a reference point of their true center. They're all over the place and they're confused. And that's exactly why their life appears to be a confusing mess, because they are confused. Their mind is confused. And the reason why they're confused is because they think that life happens to them instead of from them and because of them. They've resigned themselves to feeling helpless and hopeless in the seeming chaos of it all out there, drifting along here and there, thrown about here and there by the whims of life. Hey, I'm not saying that life is all doom and gloom, because it's not. But it's certainly a mixed bag of ups and downs. And without knowing your true nature as the creator, the source, the center of your reality, you're never going to get off this roller coaster ride of uncertainty, feeling like you're on top today and crashing miserably the next. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Very strangely, believe it or not, most people are addicted to this constant roller coaster nature of life. You know what it's called? It's called drama. And like the actual ride, the roller coaster, it can be exhilarating. It gives you a false rush, a hit of energy, and makes you feel like you're really, truly alive. And that's why these big, crazy headlines on the news, it makes people go nuts. It's also the reason why it's such big business and you don't hear any happy news, hardly, because people are asking for it. They feed on it. People eat it up because they're getting this jolt, this thick rush of emotions. The outrage, the sadness, the disgust, the horror, the hilarity, whatever it is, same shit, different flavor. It's one thing today and something else the next. So, as an awakening one who's been living on a steady drama fix all your life, weaning from it isn't without its difficulties and discomforts. There will be a period where, instead of the turbulence I spoke of earlier, you'll feel like you're stuck in the doldrums, where not much is happening, and you're going to feel very bored and tempted to swing back into the action, back into the drama, simply because you can't stand the stillness of what you are. And you know what I mean. Just look around everywhere. How many people do you see these days who's not glued to their devices all the time? And I'm not talking so much about the act of plugging into your device or making some kind of a critique about how much we use devices, so much as the fact that people can't even spend a minute alone with themselves. with their stillness. It doesn't matter what it is that people occupy their time with, really, but the bottom line is they can't stand to be with themselves. It's an addiction, the searching to fill their stillness with drama, with activity, which is just mostly junk, chatter. And just like any addiction, it's going to be a tough one to release. So, mind training, consciousness training, learning to be familiar with stillness. Now we arrive at the core of the matter, and that's the heart. Did you know that in many ancient cultures, and still now in many of the living ancient wisdom traditions, the mind is the same as the heart? They don't say that the mind resides in the heart or that the heart lives in the mind. They call it heart-mind. In other words, they're the same thing. I'm not just referring to the heart as an organ that's in the center of your chest, although that's important too. What I'm talking more about is the feeling nature of the heart, the knowingness of the heart, the intuition, the compassion, the love, the tenderness, and also the rawness of the heart. That's where your truth resides. That's where your mind, your consciousness resides, not in the brain or rational mind like we've been taught by science and by our education systems. Interestingly, science has recently discovered that the heart, the organ, actually contains neurons or brain cells, and some are calling it the second brain. But would the world soon come to see that it is really the other way around? That the brain is actually the second heart, a receiving station, a tool that supports the heart? Ultimately, as we become more and more conscious and remember the truth of what we are, and by the way, you might not have noticed, but unless it's for syntax reasons, you'll hardly ever hear me call the self a who. And that's because, again, you are not a person, a body, or even your personality. Your true self, your free self, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. It's not a who, but a what. It's mind, it's consciousness, it's spirit. It is. So it will be very helpful next time you ask the primordial question, the question of questions, who am I? It's much more appropriate and useful to ask instead, what am I? That changes everything. All right, so this heart mind, that's what the show is ultimately about. It's about opening your heart and mind. And the more it opens, the more free you will be. It's about releasing the matrix of all the untruths, the unrealities, the false programs and perceptions that we've let ourselves, our operating systems, to be run by. And instead, it's about learning to cultivate and replace them with only the highest truth, the highest consciousness, the true reality of what is ultimately you as God consciousness. Because the truth is, the secret of secrets is that you are God. You are the heart-mind of compassion. You are love. You are already awake. You are the eternal I am. So there you have it, just a few important comments on what the show is about. Again, please visit the website at disconnectmatrix.com. That's disconnectmatrix.com to read more about the show. especially about the whole Matrix part, which I haven't really gone into, and which I think anyone who's familiar with the movie The Matrix will get the connection right away. And despite the title of the show being what it is, the reason why I haven't talked much about The Matrix is because it's really not about that. Yes, of course, it has a lot to do with what we'll be talking about, but instead of solidifying it, making it real, I wanted to emphasize that it's simply an illusion. It's untrue, and therefore unreal. And speaking of, I'm sure it's obvious by now, but just in case, for anyone wondering, this show is not about the movie The Matrix. Although if you visit the website, disconnectmatrix.com, there is a clear thematic and visual reference to the film. It's not to say that I won't be alluding to the film every now and then, because the reason why I chose to include this specific reference to begin with is because it does such a fantastic job of illustrating the core concepts of the show. To me, it's one of the most successful commercial works out there that's made an impact on so many people who've seen it, where many, often for the very first time, entertain the idea of what is reality? What is truth? And could this all be possible? It certainly did for me and so many other people I know. And if you haven't seen the film, I highly recommend it. So just to put it out there, that's where the direct movie reference comes in. Really just as a way to tie into an already established film with a theme that's well recognized and has become very much a part of the cultural vernacular. I thought it was an appropriate way to help deliver my message, but that's about as far as it goes in terms of its connection to the actual film. So, what else is this show about and not about? To be clear, this show is absolutely about spirituality. Although I'm a bit reluctant to use the word because of all the mixed associations that comes with it. I'm saying this because what I'll be talking about is, indeed, about spirituality. But it's also very new. So new that words with old connotations like spirituality, with all its hodgepodge baggage, it doesn't seem to quite fit the bill. But for now, think of it as Spirituality 2.0, the new spirituality of the new era that we've recently stepped into. And speaking of old spirituality, I'll be talking a lot about religion, because it is one of the heaviest and densest overlays in all of what I'm calling the Matrix, that so many awakening humans have the hardest time releasing. I know, because I've been there. So if you're finding yourself struggling with this, I truly hope I can help you transition out of it more smoothly than I have. Because you'll see that not only is religion a very old consciousness whose time is coming to an end, it's one of, if not the biggest, lies of humanity that's keeping you from your truth and your freedom. If I can name one thing that I've managed to completely release myself from, is this mammoth electromagnetic force field called religion. It wasn't easy. And the turbulence I talked about earlier, the turbulence out of this was painful and strong, and it lasted many years. But I broke through. And I have got to say that it was so worth it, because freeing myself from this one thing, religion, has single-handedly transformed my life. And if raising myself to this level of consciousness, the consciousness that transcends religion, if that was the cap, the ceiling for my learning in this lifetime, I can say that I die satisfied. That's how huge it was for me. And I'm still alive, and I'm just getting started. For those who still want to follow religion, so be it. I don't care. But I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to you. Because if you want to wake up, you'll need to understand that religion is not only totally unnecessary, but more so, it is essential that you release it in order to reclaim your rightful place as the sovereign one, the God that you are, the I am. And I know it sounds a little strange and nonsensical that I speak about breaking free from religion and then telling you that you are God. But just bear with me. This is something that I'm going to explain later. And to give you a little hint, when I say that you are God, I'm not talking about the God that they talk about at church. Also, related to religion, to spirituality, is the idea of seeking. People call themselves seekers of truth, seekers of knowledge, seekers of enlightenment, God, whatever. Please, no more seeking if you really want to wake up. All seeking does for you is to perpetuate the search. And as long as you consider yourself a seeker, you will always be seeking. It's never going to stop. You will never arrive at answers. And even if you did somehow stumble into some kind of truth, you wouldn't even recognize it because you don't trust yourself. You're just going to keep on being a seeker. Remember, as within, so without. I'm going to be repeating that over and over and over again because that's exactly what I've been doing to myself, to remind myself that everything, it all stems from within. So back to this seeking. Honestly, I get really annoyed when I hear people saying so earnestly, I am a seeker. And to that, I think to myself, well, good luck with that. Let me know how that goes. Then again, so be it. That's what they choose to experience for now, and all I can do is really just let them be where they are. Because that's what they choose to experience for now on their path. At one point, we're all going to be fully awake, and it's not up to me or anyone else to judge how and when they're going to wake up. Eventually, they'll snap out of it. But if you want answers now, if you want to know now, then you've got to stop being a seeker now and start being a knower now. Just like that. No more, oh, I am a humble seeker. No, you declare, I am a knower. Got it? A few other things that this show is not about. It's not about joining a spiritual organization, taking on a teacher or guru, or following set rules. It eschews meditation, rituals, visualizations, affirmations, or even positive thinking for that matter. I'm not saying that any of this is good or bad, but for those who want to wake up fast, this stuff is all a distraction. I know this because I've been there and done all of it, and I wasted a lot of time in the process. There's also going to be zero dependence on angels, guides, or any higher authority other than self. Same thing with karma, destiny, planetary alignment, horoscope, numerology, tarot, psychics, energy healing, or anything that smacks of old beliefs and old energy. Other people may think they need it, and that's fine, but you don't. So yes, this show is about spirituality, but as you can see, it's a new kind of spirituality. Spirituality 2.0. What I share instead is a new energy consciousness. It's the latest spiritual technology that cuts through the crap and bypasses old, dense energy. It gets you on a newer, cleaner, leaner, and lighter platform without all the old baggage, with all of the distracting fat trimmed off, down to the bone. It's the fast lane, the fast track to realization, to ascension, to enlightenment, freedom, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same thing, and it's all yours. And this fast lane, this fast track, it starts and ends solely within you. This is a no-nonsense approach to waking up. Straight no chaser, if that's what you're into. And as good as it may sound, it is definitely not for everyone. Who am I, and why did I create the show? Who am I? Well, I'm not a who, but as a who, I go by the name Alice. And like you, I am divinity, God, having a human experience. Dreaming that I forgot what I am and that I've got to learn how to return to source, to self. So that's who I am. But if you asked me, what am I would reply, I am. Even more appropriately, though, would be to say, I. And if I'm to be even more accurate than that, I'd have to not say a thing and simply radiate my isness, my beingness. The story is this. One day, I woke up, and since then, I have chosen not only to never go back to sleep again, but to be fully awake in this lifetime. I created the show as a way to report back to you all that I've discovered and realized in my own journey of awakening, of disconnecting from the matrix of not me, not mine, and reconnecting and re-embodying only that which is mine. Now, I admit, I still have much releasing to do. It's a work in progress, and it's far from being over. Nonetheless, I've come to understand some things along the way. And there's been an urgency lately of needing to speak about everything that I've experienced and know up to now, as well as what I will come to know in time. Something inside me whispered loudly, in no uncertain terms, that it was time to come out, to take my seat as an awakening one, to join the others who are also taking their seats, to share, to help, show, to guide the way to freedom for those who want it. I'm not doing this to feel special or to be validated by you or anyone else, because I validate myself. And in the same way, please don't accept anything I say at face value. Be skeptical, question it, examine it, test it for yourself to see if it's true for you, because that's all that matters. And by the way, I am not the author of anything I share, as these are principles that have always been around before and beyond time. And when I say it's new, it's not that it wasn't always around, because otherwise it wouldn't be truth, would it? But there are levels of truth, I suppose you can say for now. And they can only be revealed and seen and known when we rise up to that level of consciousness. So I've simply discovered these things on my own, these things that have been around this entire time and has always been available to anyone who really wanted to know. And all I'm doing really is to relay them to you in my own voice, through my own experience, and in my own style. So if anyone tells you something similar to what you'll hear from me, because there are lots of other people who see what I see and know what I know, And then they tell you that they have a copyright on this information, that they have ownership of it. Please, go tell them to go fuck themselves and run the other way. And by the way, if you're someone who's thinking right now, oh, she uses profanity, how very spiritual of her. Well, let me just say, fuck you too. You know why? Because as long as you have that mindset of drawing solid lines between the profane and sacred, the good and the bad, you will never know spirit. Being spiritual is not about being a goody-good. It's not about whether you use good language or bad language. And now you know why I'm so ambivalent about using the word spirituality. And if this is where you're at, my friend, I honor you. I really do. But dear one, please turn off this podcast now because it is not for you. At least not yet. But you're always welcome to come back when you're ready. So this show, for those of you still with me, for those of you who are left who are still with me, this is my gift, my heart gift. For whoever is ready, wanting, or needing this information to help them with their own self-discovery. It's there for them to use in whatever ways they see fit. And if I can help one person begin to see right side up this very upside down world, I would be so honored. I just touched on who this show is not for, so then who is this show for? You probably have a fairly good idea by now if this show is for you, because even if you've never heard of anything I've talked about, or even believe it for now, you're feeling a strange familiarity to it without quite knowing why. This world, it's waking up very rapidly. There's even a term for it, this time, this era. It's called the Great Shift. Look it up. And if you're still with me, I am talking to you. I invite you to join me, because if I'm saying anything you need to hear, it's because you're saying this to yourself, through me, as me. You know you're waking up if you're tired of the same old rut and feel that something's not quite right about how your world's been operating. You have a knowingness within yourself that the truth is available somewhere, somehow, and you're ready for answers. The old roads that you've been down countless times have gotten you nowhere, and that's why you're here, still with me. You feel like you're on a hamster wheel, running all day long, while remaining exactly in the same position you started. You're exhausted and you're fed up. You're uncertain how to proceed, but you also know that you can't continue the way things were. You're not going to find answers by going down the same road you've been on all along. You already know where it all leads. Anywhere from discontent, dissatisfaction, depression, and straight down to despondency, despair, and dissolution. And by the way, have you noticed that these are all words that start with the letter D? Well, I know all this because that was me. I was there, to the point where I didn't care if I lived or died. I found at that time that apathy was far more painful than despair. But since I can only tell you what I know based on my own experiences, I may not be able to give you the answers. But my desire, my heartfelt desire, is to at least point the way and perhaps provide you with some tools that's worked for me to help you learn how to find the answers within yourself. Because after all, you're the only one that knows the answers to your questions. defer to no one but self. So if you are an awakening being, congratulations! Because even though we are in the great shift and many are waking up, the majority of the world is still not ready to be unplugged from the matrix. They choose to stay unconscious. And I say this only to point out the rarity of your choice, without any judgment in the choices of others who wish to remain asleep. At some point, everyone will wake up, each in their own chosen time. Whether they choose to take the scenic route or the expressway is up to them, and it is to be absolutely honored. I, for one, would jump in a wormhole if I could. So back to freedom. Freedom, by definition, requires choice, and no one can ever be free without their own consent. Lastly, I want to leave you with this. Freedom, it's an all or nothing proposition. You can't be a little free or a lot free. You're either free or you're not. There is no compromise. So, for those of you who've made the choice, I'm Alice. Welcome to Wonderland. Let me show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. That wraps up the pilot episode of Disconnecting from the Matrix. Thanks for listening. I hope this gives you a pretty good idea about the show. I look forward to having you back as we dive straight into releasing from the Matrix and reclaiming our sovereignty. If you've enjoyed the show and know of others who might also enjoy it, please help spread the word by sharing. Please visit disconnectmatrix.com. That's disconnectmatrix.com. There you'll find all the recordings along with show notes for each episode, as well as ways to share with your network. And please leave a comment and start a conversation. In the website, you'll also find links to join me on social media where we can continue the dialogue. And if you'd like to stay in touch, you can subscribe to my email list. My email is alice@disconnectmatrix.com. I welcome your comments, questions, and any suggestions you have to help this show evolve and grow for the benefit of all awakening beings. In fact, I would love to have you heard on the show. If you'd like to state your questions or comments in your own voice for a chance to be included in upcoming episodes, please record your message starting with your name and location on a voice recording app on your device or computer and send the recording to alice@disconnectmatrix.com. Thanks again for joining me. Until next time.